Welcome to Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, the wildest mixed tag team in podcasting where the kayfabe drops and the chaos takes over. Let's ring the damn bell.
Headlock tight, heels on the prowl, dropping elbows, hearing growl, feel the foul. No script here, just real, no bluff. Kayfabe crack, now the dirt gets rough. Headlocks, heels, havoc in the zone. Stepping in the ring, chaos at your home. No filters, no mask, just raw bare tone. Wrestling unscripted, we on the throne. Title bells, mic checks, crowd going crazy. Drop truth bombs, leaving lines feeling hazy. Beyond the kayfabe, past the charade, where legends are born and stories get made. Headlocks popping, who's hitting the mat? Welcome to the havoc where the real talk's at. Tune in, step through, leave the fake at the door. Headlocks, heels, havoc, now hear the roar.
In the world of professional wrestling, where scripted storylines and real-life personalities often blur, some rivalries have erupted beyond the ring and into genuine personal conflict. Whether fueled by backstage politics, jealousy, creative control, or bruised egos, these feuds have turned co-workers into enemies, sometimes leading to physical altercations, sabotaged matches, or decades-long grudges. From Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels' infamous tension that climaxed with the infamous Montreal Screwjob, to the personal and professional fallout between CM Punk and WWE management. Real-life animosity added unpredictable intensity to wrestling's theatrics. These rivalries remind us that beyond the characters and the promos are real people whose passions, pride, and power struggles don't always end when the cameras stop rolling. Welcome to Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, ladies and gentlemen. I am 1/3 of the mixed tag team of podcast hosts. With me, as always, is the red, white, and bruised Uncle Slam.
What's up?
And the first lady of wrestling podcasts, the Vipers.
Hi, everyone.
So, guys, rivalries. I mean, there's so many great ones.
So intense.
Yes.
I didn't know there were so many,
So
honestly.
intense.
Like, they talk about it being a giant family, but then when you actually start doing the research, it's like, I guess it's like any place else. Everybody doesn't really get along. They just kind of act like they get along.
Well, and plus professional jealousy plays a lot into it. Like, the intro said, like we were talking about in another episode, some of these, with these older guys, they just didn't want to give up their spots, and it created tensions that didn't need to be created because if they'd have left their rivalries alone, there was plenty to go around for everybody.
You think it was just greed? They didn't want to give up the power because they had the power?
I think that was the nature of the beast back then in wrestling is, if you gave up a spot, then you were likely giving up your spot sometimes for good, out of sight, out of mind.
Like, you weren't going to get another chance. It was like, I'm in the spotlight now. If I lose or I put this other guy over, I might not get another chance. So
Right. I'm here now. I got to keep my name relevant. So, if that means that I got to screw somebody over, then, I got to do what's right for me.
Right.
And I think now that the business has become what it is, you're going to see less rivalries like that because not only the companies, but the talent, everybody has realized there's enough to go around. There's enough for everybody to make a comfortable living doing this.
See, I almost see the opposite because I feel like because the nature of the beast is to be the best, and to be the best, there can only be one. So almost by design, it's like you're forcing people to kind of choose the whole crab over the barrel mentality where I got to put myself before you. Don't mean you have to screw anybody, but it's like my job is to keep myself number one because if I'm number one, I'm making the most money. I'm guaranteed in. I'm going to sell the merchandise. I'm going to make the most money, and I'm securing my future and my legacy. And I think that they can also help other guys get over, but at the same time, it's still I need to be number one. I need to be up front. Like, because like people like The Rock and Austin back in the day, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they were the men and were the man, and when it came time to, maybe get somebody else over, they really wasn't willing to, because they were like, we don't have chemistry, or, we don't, I might lose money, or, I'm getting ready to retire soon. I've been kind of fucked up. I'm trying to stack my bread before I get out.
Right.
Or you could
And
just be a weasel like Hogan was.
The politics create rivalries. Well, look at the, well, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead. No,
She's like, I don't have anything yet.
not yet.
But it's like, look at the politics that involved, like Hogan and Savage. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, that went a little bit more personal than, the other,
Yeah, because I think that was more kind of like the whole Miss Elizabeth.
And stuff
sleeping
like
with,
that.
Yeah, so that was.
I don't think Macho Man was threatened by Hogan's spot, because I think Macho Man knew.
Had his own spot.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the Macho Man knew that. But did you know, I found this out, and, we're talking about rivalries. Did you know that every one of the Macho Man's title losses was against, I believe, Hogan and Flair, and that's it?
That's it?
No, I didn't
It's
know
the only
that.
two people he ever lost the title to.
That's crazy.
Mm.
That's crazy.
So you can't tell me that. Now the Flair, okay. Because Flair, Flair had no problem dropping a title.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, hell, Flair would have dropped the title 500 times. He don't have a problem being called the 500-time world champion.
Yeah, because he
No,
knew he
he's
was
a
getting it back
21.
anyway and shit.
Right.
So,
He knew that, if all else fails, you can put it back on me and it works. And you can find somebody else to try to throw at me to see if we can build them up, Kind of the same thing with Hogan. But I don't know. So what are the biggest rivalries like that leaked into personal lives that really stand out to you? Of course, there's the Shawn and Bret.
well, it seems like almost like the same couple names always kind of come out. Obviously, there's the Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. There's Bret Hart and Goldberg. And then there's Bret and fucking Vince and shit. So, I mean, those are just
Poor
the easy
Bret.
ones. Bret seems to obviously have issues, but a lot of it kind of is tied in together, honestly. I definitely understand why Bret doesn't like Goldberg. He pretty much ended his career for being
Right.
kind of a bad worker, kind of stiffed, and they didn't even talked about it before, and he still fucking, kicked the shit out of him for no reason.
I
and
wanted
shit.
to ask you about that because we were talking about that in another show. Do you think that that's Goldberg's fault, and I'm not saying it's Bret's fault, because there's a lot of wrestlers who have said, "Hey, if I don't hear what they say, that's on me." I'm not posting blame on Goldberg or Bret. Horrible accident. I'm not a Bret Hart fan by any means. Heartbreak Kid for life, because we break the hearts. So, but anyways, if looks could kill people, if looks could kill.
Right.
But
But I think that it.
I just think he was sloppy.
But was that
Who was
his
sloppy?
fault, or was that WCW's fault for pushing him way too quick and just throwing him out there and not teaching him how to wrestle? And then once it blew up, not taking the time to actually teach him how to wrestle, instead of just teaching him the 3 or 4 or 5 moves that he could do and then saying, do those safe.
I think because the time was obviously during, the Monday Night Wars. I think they found something hot. I think they found something that worked, that was getting attention, because, he had the streak and everything. And I think they didn't give a shit. I think they were like, look, this guy's hot. People like him. We're going to ride this wave and take it wherever it goes, and we'll figure out the rest when it comes, whether, he's a good wrestler or not a wrestler. Obviously, wrestling, you don't have to be a great wrestler to be a great wrestler in, professional wrestling. Hogan's a prime example. He was, as far as a leg drop and a elbow, it's pretty much his, or clothesline, that's his repertoire.
Watch his stuff in Japan, though. He's a lot better. Have you ever seen some of his stuff against Great Muta in Japan?
Yeah, but Hogan was never that technical guy.
No, and it looked kind of funky him doing it. But yeah,
But like I said, but I don't expect that from Hogan. Like, I don't go watch Hogan and expect him to put on a sharpshooter or fucking put on a fucking figure four or a fucking any of
I
that
want him
shit.
to run in the ring, beat somebody up for a few seconds, rip his shirt off, throw the shirt in the crowd, get blindsided to where he ends up, getting beat up for 20 minutes, and and then next thing you know, he hulks up, leg drop, boom, done.
Exactly. It is what it is and shit. But back to the rivalries. I mean, of course, the whole Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, which kind of feeds into the Vince McMahon thing. You know what I'm saying? They always had rivals,
Right.
between each other. There was always beef. Shit kind of spread a little personal, especially some of the shots with the whole Sunny Day thing, and I understand that.
Well, when you bring people's families into
Yeah,
it, especially
yeah,
on national TV,
I think
gets,
that went like a little, personal, or whatever. But I also think that it kind of made their story better because there really was a rivalry there. It wasn't just, we wrote this story and it just sounds good. It was like, we really kind of don't really like each other. So, I mean, and some of the best stories, like they said, are a mix of reality and storytelling, and fiction or whatever. And that helps sell it.
it adds passion behind the promos.
Yeah. And, of course, it all blew up at the infamous, Montreal screw job where they were worried that Brett wasn't going to drop the title. And so Vince was like, I got to do what I got to do, which I don't agree because I thought Brett really was going to drop the title. He was going to be cool about the situation because he was going to go get a nice payday from WCW.
But could you trust that with your company? Would you,
I see
if
what-
it was your company and I was your champion and I looked at you and I said, Josh, man, we've been friends for 30 years. Man, but I got to go where more money is. I promise you, man, I can't lose in Danville. But the next night on our YouTube show, man, I'll just hand title to you.
Well,
I won't show up on that other YouTube show in the next town over.
Well, like a lot of that has to do with what type of business y'all have done in the past. Like if you've had a straight relationship and you've done mostly business with a handshake and everything's worked out, but like if you haven't trusted each other and you felt like you got fucked in the past, like my whole philosophy is I go by what people do, not what they say. So so like if I've had prior experience with you and I know the type of person you are, then maybe if he didn't trust Vince and knew Vince was going to dick him over and not do what he say,
We'll try to give you the benefit of the doubt type thing.
Yeah, but if we've had a decent relationship and we made money together, then I might be more towards I'm going to do the right thing. But I know Vince, and Vince, like he said a million times, it's about the business.
Yes.
And in his mindset, he couldn't take that chance.
Especially at that time because they were beating his butt too bad.
Exactly. So I understand why he did it. I don't agree that he did it. And I think that, obviously Vince got what he deserved because he got punched in the fucking face and got knocked out, which I think he fully deserved and he should have got. I honestly think maybe Shawn should have got a little too, but I don't know if Shawn's as liable in the whole Montreal
I
screw
do.
job as Shawn. Now, I knew he knew. I
He
mean,
was too drugged at the time.
and there was a lot of people also that knew that it was going to go down.
Yeah.
That
Well,
just didn't say
There's
shit.
the infamous interview with Triple H where Triple H, they said it was Triple H said it was him, Vince, and Shawn sitting in
I know
the
exactly what
office.
you're talking. Yeah.
And he was like, they were just quiet. He said, and finally Triple H just looked up and said, fuck him.
Yeah.
He said, if he won't do business, we'll do business for him.
Yeah. Exactly. And I
Because
think
the idea had been pitched.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and here's where we come back to our another episode we did about managers, but Jim Cornette is the one who came up with the idea from an older wrestling storyline to get the title off of someone who wasn't wanting
talking
to
about that
drop it.
female wrestler.
Well,
They
no,
split-
that was it was used basically again there to cinch
Mm-hmm.
up on her with the fabulous Moolah and stuff and everything. I think it was like a WrestleMania 2 or something like that, or something like I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But it was a story from way back in the day, like maybe the 60s, 50s, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I may be wrong about that date too, but I know it was a story that he knew from back in the day in wrestling, and he pitched the idea to Vince at one of their meetings, and then next thing you know, it just, I guess that's what ended up happening.
But like I said, that's probably one of the biggest rivalries that spread over into real life that actually included, I would say, 2-3 people or whatever, Vince and Shawn Michaels.
You may not agree with my opinion about that.
You a Shawn Michaels?
Go ahead.
No, actually, well, I'm with Vince, if that makes sense.
You stand with Vince, not
I stand
anybody
with
else.
Vince than I do with any of the three of them, because
I understand.
in reality, Brett had the opportunity. He knew he had to get rid of the title. He knew he had to drop the title. His problem is he did not want to drop that title, and he was too big pants to not get rid of it. And
To Shawn. Because he's quoted as saying,
but-
I will drop it to anybody else. But Shawn,
Okay,
he
but
wanted to
who
drop
are
it to
you
Ken
to say
Shamrock.
that Shawn
Right.
can't have it?
Right.
Who are you to say that? You are leaving a company that you are no longer affiliated with. Who are you to say that he can't have that title? And it
love
is
the
your fault.
passion.
And it is your fault that they pitched multiple, not just one idea. It was multiple ideas, like from 2 different people. And he shot down every single one of them. And because you were too big to drop something that you were no longer going to have rights to, you deserve to get what you got. It's called repercussions.
Nah, see,
Everybody in the history, no, everybody in the history, everybody, just being the history buff I am about it, I don't think I have really seen in the history of this where a person leaves a company to go to a rival company and takes that title with them. Who has ever
You mean
done
like
that?
Ric Flair did?
Did he?
Didn't he with the NWA?
I don't
He
know.
did, but
Yeah.
that wait a minute, but that was his belt.
Was that his?
No.
Yes, the big
That was
gold belt. No, the big gold belt he paid for.
paid for.
He
Did he
had,
create that?
yes,
Like the name?
yes.
But
He
is it
had
the company's belt?
He had it made and everything.
I don't-
He was allowing
know.
the company to
Are you
use
sure
it.
about that?
Yes, 100%. That's why. But they ended up suing him because it had the the letters NWA on the top of it, and because it had the letters NWA, that's why they started pixelating it. He could still walk around wearing it. He didn't have to return it because it was actually his belt. And what it was where the NWA required you, and there's another rivalry, Flair versus the late WCW management, or the early WCW management, like Jim Herd and stuff. And
Yeah.
Flair hated Herd, but they wanted to turn Flair into a gladiator. Jim Herd
Oh,
did.
God.
Yes. So, yeah, that would have worked. Jim Herd knew a lot about wrestling. But what it was the NWA/WCW required the champion to put down a deposit on the belt. So just in case it was lost, I think it was like $25,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He had never gotten any of his deposits back.
Oh,
That's my belt. You kept my money. This is
I
my
think
belt.
that's different.
That's
I think,
a little bit different.
I think
Like,
that's just a hair bit different. I'm talking. Let's just say like company owned.
Well,
title belts.
everybody. Well, Flair had that belt designed because of the other NWA belt, the classic NWA belt. I love that belt anyway, but they just wanted something to stand out more, and that was bigger than WWE's.
Yeah.
Looked more classic and everything. So Flair, had that belt made up and everything, and then they just went with it, and everything was like, no, that's the belt we want to use.
I think we can push that one to the side. I don't think that has. I think it's just a little bit different, just because it's not. There was other people that held that title, held
See,
Brett's title
I'm just
before
saying
him.
Right. I'm just saying, like, as far as like Brett, though, I don't know, man. Like with that, back then, I was all about Shawn Michaels. I'm still all about Shawn Michaels over Bret Hart, but I respect Bret Hart a lot more. I miss Bret Hart, and I understand why Vince done what he did, and I see why you side with Vince.
Right.
I also see why you side with Bret Hart. I don't really see a side to side with Shawn Michaels in it, other than just he had to do what he had to do because the boss said so. You
He
know
was
what I'm
just a
saying?
follow guy.
Well, I mean, that
Maybe.
I understand. You know, Sean's just going to do what he has to do.
Right.
But I'm talking about from Vince's perspective. It's like you don't do business like that. I mean, like even the Undertaker, he's old school as fuck. Didn't like that shit because he knew that's
Right.
not what you do. That's not how you treat your
Well,
people.
he was mad at Brett too.
And that shows, like, if he can do that to the champ, then he can do that to anybody.
Yeah,
True.
He was mad.
So that just shows that, like he says, the business over everything. So he will screw anybody and everybody for the business. Doesn't matter if it's his wife, kid, whoever. If it makes business, if it makes dollars, he'll do it. So, like I said, I understand because he was worried about it. I don't agree. I don't justify it, and I will never think it was a good move. And I think that's why Brett was so pissed because he felt like him and Vince had a good relationship. You know, because everybody talks about it being a family, Vince being like a father type deal. And when you have a close relationship like that, because wrestlers are close anyway, and when you spend as much time as they do together, that, you know, you feel like you can trust people, that you have to trust somebody in wrestling and shit, because that's what it is. Because if you don't trust them, bad shit happens and stuff. Obviously,
and see, that's the thing too that like gets me is that there's where I stand is because it sucks that Brett was being stubborn, which he obviously was. There's no denying it. It sucks that Shawn and Brett had that chemistry to where Brett was being stubborn to where he wouldn't drop it to Shawn. But it also sucks that Shawn was doing everything he could to poke the bear.
yeah, like he was being a
True.
little dick.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. With
On
that.
the flip side to that, it sucks because Vince was put into a position
Where he
where
had to be
he
about it.
had to protect his company
Exactly,
over
and he shouldn't have had to be
everything.
put
The
in that
business
position.
over everything.
But like, we'll never know if he was or wasn't going to do because that decision was taken out of his hand.
Right.
So we can only speculate if he would have took the
Right.
belt or if he would have kept the belt.
But here's what nobody that I've looked back on and never thought about. Look how many HBK Bret Hart matches it robbed us of. Regardless of who you like in that rivalry, there is no doubt in my mind, that's probably the greatest rivalry ever. Just because it was so good inside and outside of the ring. And it didn't matter how many times you split them up and put them off on another road, you could always pull them right back together. Because there were plans in the works for Iron Man, or the Iron Man match 2. There were plans, there were all kinds of plans. DX versus the Hart Foundation. Could you imagine if the Hart Foundation had been around when the Road Dogg and X-Pac and all of them joined?
Yeah, like when all the factions were going
Right,
around, when,
dude,
you know,
that
Nation of
would
Domination and
look
everybody else.
what that stubbornness and that off-screen rival cost the fans. And that's what I hate.
Well, I mean, you can't change the past, obviously, and I believe Brett was doing what he thought was best for the Bret Hart and his family and the business from his perspective.
And as we've said in other things, that's where I wonder if that's what this whole thing was. Is just I got to do what I got to do for me.
I think, obviously, Vince and Brett just disagreed what they thought was best for business. Like when it came down to this is a fundamental. It was just a fundamental thing. Like I'm looking out for me. I'm looking out for me type deal. And when it came down to it, Vince obviously had the power, so he did his move, or you know, he pulled his move first.
So Vipers, what's a rivalry that really stands out that bled over into real life for you?
Well, y'all know obviously the Edge and Matt Hardy.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I
yeah,
forgot
that's
all
deep.
about that one. Yeah,
I didn't honestly. I mean, that got personal. I mean,
That
you're talking
got
about
real
It was way
women.
personal.
Nothing makes a man rivalry quicker than two guys fighting over a woman.
it.
Yeah, but the more I did, and y'all know I love Jeff Hardy. He is my number one main man of all time. So I'm gonna back Matt any which way. But I did find out with researching that Matt is the one that encouraged Lita and Edge to go on not really trips. It's more like a road trip to get from place to place for when they were driving and stuff, because Lita was bored, Matt was doing other stuff, and Edge was by himself, and they were all supposedly, well, they were all friends at the time.
Sounds like a Benoit Sullivan type
So like
situation.
you kind of
That's what I'm
pushed them together, pretty much. Was like, hey, you should
Sort of.
ride with so and so, or you say you're bored, so here ride with so and so. They're funny type deal to the.
Well, they were all already friends, so I guess Matt didn't seem to find any reason to be worried about it, but they were spending more, like hours upon hours together, traveling from city to city.
Edge wasn't a threat.
And Edge wasn't a threat, and because
When in real life
they became really, really close, and it caused so many problems, so many different matches within the WWE, and then they all hated each other outside the ring.
Well, it's just like you don't do that, because like Uncle Slam, I've known him, I've known his old
Geico.
lady for years, but there is nothing in me that would go, hey, since you're at work, me and her's going to go get some lunch or something together.
Yeah, that just
you
sounds
just
weird.
don't
So
do that.
weird.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You don't open up doors like that. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's just you don't
You're
let
opening
any.
up
Yeah, you
just craziness.
and that's what they did. They opened up doors that just didn't need to be opened. There is a line of respect, I guess, that you just don't cross
Right.
in those friendships. And when you do that, when you're in a relationship, your old lady shouldn't be going out and hanging out with your buddies.
Absolutely
Your
not.
old man shouldn't be going out and hanging out with your girlfriends.
Yeah, no,
It's
absolutely
just
not.
you're asking for trouble in that
Exactly.
situation. And like you said, sounds like he pushed her into it. Lonely woman on the road.
Not necessarily pushed her into it, but it was just a bad recipe.
Yes.
Lonely woman. A lot of time with a guy by themselves, I mean, it just wasn't a good recipe, and
Right.
things happened.
Yep. But I remember that getting real personal on TV with like the bed and the ring and stuff and everything.
Yeah, they definitely pushed that shit a little
Yes.
far.
That's
I mean,
insane.
they ate that shit up. I mean, when Vince found out and was like, "Oh yeah, we gonna sell this shit."
For that not to be the Attitude Era and be the Ruthless Aggression Era, which was trying to get out of the Attitude Era, that was kind of pushing the envelope pretty.
That was a little
Yeah, it was a little
X-rated to be on
risque.
TV.
Because, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he got her down fully to her underwear completely.
I'm pretty sure.
And
he
he
got
got
a bra
down.
off
He
at
got
one
down
point.
to his underwear. I'm pretty sure, and I was just like, "What's
Yeah.
going on here?" And like he had her like kind of turned over with his
Yeah, it
in
was
her
all kinds-
rear end. I was
Yeah,
like,
they definitely pushed the envelope.
I was
on
like,
that
"Wow,
shit.
okay, we're doing that." I was like, "That's what wrestling is now."
Of course.
It's crazy. Like, I'm trying to think of other real.
CM Punk with everybody.
Yeah,
Everybody.
Right.
The
Pretty much
entire
everybody.
world. I'm
Yeah.
just going to throw it out there. And
Jungle Boy.
there really
who
was.
Jack
else?
Perry.
Jack-
He put.
Jungle
I
Boy
don't know
Jack
if you've
Perry.
seen the video of him pushing Jack Perry backstage.
Before we go there, Josh, do you know who Jungle Boy Jack Perry is?
Or who his dad is.
Wrestles for AEW.
No, who?
He's a youngin'.
You remember Dylan Walsh, 90210?
yeah,
Luke
yeah.
Perry?
Yeah.
That's his
That's
daddy.
his dad.
What?
Yeah.
Luke Perry's son, Jack Perry, is Jungle
Oh.
Boy Jack Perry.
That's interesting.
He's not bad. He looks just like him, too.
Is he decent though?
He's okay.
He's actually really
for
good.
like
I
a cruiserweight,
Okay.
he's
Yeah,
a
he's
littler
cruiserweight
guy.
type.
Okay.
But I mean, he's good. I don't think he's horrible or anything. I think he needs to work on some of his promo work a little bit. But
He's getting better, like
Yeah.
everybody should if they're wrestling.
well, and that's the thing that people don't stop and think about with like AEW. Sorry, I don't mean to get off on a tangent because we're talking about rivals. But with AEW, and that maybe that plays into why CM Punk got into it with him, was because these guys from AEW, the younger guys, were straight from the indie scenes.
yeah.
The older vets
Were
were the
all
guys that
rest-
WCW and WWF and TNA and all these other places had let go.
Yeah.
So they all came together during COVID. It was a place to go and make some money, so that's what they did. That older mentality in the locker room versus that younger mentality in the locker room probably didn't settle. And I think that caused a rivalry that broke out between Jungle Boy and CM Punk, where I've heard different stories. I've heard CM Punk beat him up. I've heard
No,
Jungle
no.
Boy beat him up.
No, neither.
I've heard it was like just a couple punches thrown
He
and then they
smacked
broke it
him.
up.
There's a video online. You can go and see it.
I've looked at and I can't really. I see the smack, but I don't really see anything
I mean, it's a
else.
smack, okay, fine, but then he pushes him, and he pushes him all the way to where Jack Perry falls to the ground. And then that's when other people come around and start trying to break it up, and then, then
Okay.
they're shoving each other.
So it wasn't
But it's
really.
all-
It was a shoving match.
Yeah, it was because Jack Perry didn't want to go through an actual glass windshield, and I can't say that I blame him.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to either.
I wouldn't either. Fuck all that shit.
Right.
Yeah, and CM Punk was adamant about it, and they were supposed to do a promo. And
Was this like ECW or like WWE?
No, this was AEW.
Okay, AEW.
It was CM Punk's second run in AEW.
So
Before he come to WWE.
let me ask this: what would you all say? Where would you all rank like the whole? I don't know if you've seen it, Viperous. If you haven't, you really need to watch it. It's
Okay.
kind of really crazy. But the last days of WCW, when Jeff Jarrett just laid out. So I'm basically talking about the Russo Hogan rivalry.
Okay.
So, the last days of WCW when
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Jarrett just laid down in the ring.
I've heard about
Oh,
that. I
I
don't
saw
know
that. Yes,
much
I
about it. I
remember
knew
that.
he went in the ring, just laid down and laid there, and the other dude's just like,
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
going on?
Like, what was the story? A story
don't know
behind
much
that
about
was it they wanted him to either drop it and he didn't want to drop it.
It was him exercising creative control
Yeah.
again, which I mean,
You know, like he's
And-
got the right. You know,
yes,
yeah.
and that's the problem you have when you give wrestlers that
kind
authority.
of, yeah.
So I mean, if he doesn't want to drop it or he wants to win or whatever it was, I don't remember exactly. I just know that like Russo told Jeff Jarrett, "Fine, screw him. He wants what he wants. We'll give him what he wants."
Yeah, I saw that shit.
You
And
know,
he just came in the ring and
Yeah,
laid
he said,
down.
"Just go out there and lay down."
And Hogan was looking all like crazy, like what the fuck?
Yeah, because he was like,
That's
he was
what
like, "This
Hogan
is the reason his company's in the
yep,
shape
yep.
it
And then he
in
went off
is
and-
because of bullshit like this."
Yep. I
That
remember
is
And then
that.
what
he
that
just
was,
put his
yeah.
foot up on Jeff Jarrett's chest. The referee counted it.
Yep.
He left and everything. Next thing you know, he was like, they said they later on had the championship match between, I think it was Booker T and Scott Steiner
I think so.
or
Yes,
something
because
like
I
that.
remember
Because
the
Booker
story
T
now.
won the championship.
When you started saying it, I was like, oh wait, it's all coming back now.
I was just like, man, I was like,
I
I like it when things like that come out, but I don't like it too. You know what I'm saying? Because
Well, it's politics and shit. Just
Yes.
Like anything.
I hate the politics.
it
of wrestling,
hurts
man.
the product overall.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing about that kind of scandals and stuff like that that is going to help it other than just attention on it. You know what I'm saying? Because once that's done and over with, are those fans going to stick around and keep watching wrestling, or are they going to just give up on it and say, well, that's over with, I don't really care anymore, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, well, look at, one I forgot all about, the Arn Anderson Sid Vicious rivalry.
Yeah, I forgot about this.
Sid Vicious stabbed Arn Anderson with
In real life?
scissors. Yes, in the hotel. They got into a
Damn,
fight.
backstage shit.
Yes, and like it was at the hotel. He stabbed him with scissors. I was like, what? Something about a fight broke out, and scissors were involved. I was like,
Okay.
why does a guy
Man.
as big as Sid Vicious
Need scissors.
grab scissors? Why don't you just? I mean, granted, Arn Anderson was a pretty husky guy for his size
Unless
and
he
everything,
feared
but
for himself.
right, you're like 5 inches taller than this dude. Like,
But he could have been the real deal. I mean, Arn's an
yeah.
old school dude. Like I said, I mean, Sid might have knew, hey, Arn didn't play. He put that ass whooping on you and shit.
They say that Paul Orndorff dropped Vader in a pair of flip flops.
Oh, did he? Shit.
That's what they say.
Damn.
They said one punch dropped him.
That's a big man.
Damn.
But Paul was also a fucking, I mean, he was always cut like a motherfucker.
Paul was
too.
old school.
I mean, he was cut, like he was never not in shape, so I wouldn't even be surprised on that.
I always wanted Paul Orndorff to beat Hulk Hogan for the world title.
I thought he was going to, but obviously
I did too.
they didn't, I guess he didn't have what it took or whatever.
I think he did because he had Heenan. He was part of the Heenan family. He didn't have to talk.
But obviously he didn't have enough, though.
I think they just did. I think the Andre thing came along.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you got the eighth wonder in the world,
Yeah.
I mean, shit. But it seems like most of the rivalries, when it comes to the big ones, are all the same people. Like, it seemed like nobody liked Hogan. Because, like, when I was
Yeah,
doing
nobody liked
research,
Hogan.
it was like, of course, you know,
Hogan and Vince.
there was, you know, Hogan and Vince. There was Hogan and Brian Knobs and shit. I don't know. I think that was when he supposedly slept with one of. There was Macho Man and Hogan, obviously Miss
Yeah.
Elizabeth and shit. So Hogan, I mean,
Really
look at
rubbed
Vince.
everybody the
Look
wrong
at Vince.
way.
Vince
literally.
and CM Punk. Vince and Hogan. Vince and Brett. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
but see, I can see Vince not getting along with a lot of people more just because he's a boss, as far as their boss, and you know,
He has to do things that other
who
people
likes
may
their
not
boss,
like.
and you know, and of course he's going to do stuff that's going to favor the company or do stuff that somebody is not going to like. You know, like if he thinks it's going to be better for business and shit. So I can understand people not liking Vince over shit like that.
Right.
But you know, the other shit, I'm just like, you know, that's pretty much just, you know, you just don't always like everybody. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're never gonna always like everybody you meet and everybody you know. Some people you're just not gonna like. You're just not gonna like them, and that's just common and shit. You know, personalities clash and shit.
I was sitting here and I was looking up there at like my Undertaker guy I've got up there, and you know, you were saying that, you know, with personalities clashing and everything, and everybody knows that Undertaker was like the locker room leader.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I wonder how much it was the Undertaker had a good relationship with everybody, or did everybody just know that the Undertaker would whop that head a few times if you stepped out of line? So it wasn't everybody had a great relationship. It's just everybody stayed in line.
I think it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was kind of like a mutual understanding, and they knew, you know, you probably get that ass thumped a little bit too.
and
Like I said,
respect. Mutual respect.
yeah, respect. And they also had what was like court too that they would held, so
Yeah.
they kind of self-governed
And
themselves.
he was the judge.
Yeah,
So
so like you know,
he
it
was at least respected enough to where he would be fair enough
Yeah.
to anybody and
Yeah.
everybody.
So I don't know if that still goes on now or not, but
Nah,
I
I
think
doubt it.
I think that, you know, that's kind of how they dealt with their own shit, you know, back in the day.
Speaking of, well, since we're doing rivalries, I just got to thinking about it. We were talking about the Undertaker. You know, the one guy I can say that I've never heard anybody have a bad word about was Owen Hart.
True,
Yeah.
but
I've
I thought you was gonna say
never.
Undertaker.
but I thought he
Huh?
did have some rivalries with somebody. that
What'd
was
you
pretty
What'd you
I
say,
thought, you, I
Vapors?
thought you was gonna say Undertaker. I'm like, no, I can think of one.
different.
Yeah, Owen Hart. I can't think of anybody that's ever told I can't stand Owen Hart. Now I know Stone Cold was mad at him for a long
Yeah. Oh,
time.
where he, yeah.
Yeah, but did you hear the story about that?
I've heard some version of it. now.
Well, Stone Cold told this version.
Uh-huh.
He said that, you know, and it's, of course, it's, you know, the truth coming from just one side of the story, you know, yours, mine, and somewhere in the middle is where it actually is. But Stone Cold was like, you know, they went to talk about the match before, and he was like, hey, he said, I'm going to do the Tombstone Pile Driver on you. He's like, oh, okay. He said, that's cool. He said, you're going to go down to your knees, right? And he was like, no, I'm going to sit down on my butt. And it made Stone Cold really weary. And he was like, yeah, I'd really, you know, he was like, oh, come on, Owen, you know, quit joking around. He thought he was just joking
Yeah.
around with him. And he was like, no, you know, he was like, you're going to go to your knees, right? And he was like, no, he's like, I'm going to go to my butt.
Is that normal?
No.
No,
It's more dangerous on the
Back
butt
in
because
the-
you
Well,
don't
obviously,
have
like
space.
I mean, yeah, it's dangerous, but it's like, was that a normal thing that they
Yes.
did?
Back then, there was a few people who done a tombstone like that. Even Scott Steiner the Steiner screwdriver, he would hold you in a suplex and toss you up, catch you, and go straight down on his butt.
See, I don't remember. Like I said, all the tombstones I remember were always to the knees and shit. But I also remember most of them were like
Well,
the Undertaker and shit.
Because they found out that, well, everybody knows that when you're doing a tombstone, you go to the knees because it's just safer.
Yeah.
But there were a few people who would hold you up higher. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To where your head wasn't even actually in between their knees. It was kind of like resting on their legs.
Yeah.
At the most,
Yeah.
And they would just drop to their butt, but.
Okay, now I see what you're talking about, but man, that just seems so risky, though.
I
Th-
know,
that-
right?
And that's why.
That's why he was so aggravated.
Yeah, that's why he was aggravated. He was worried and everything. Then he done it. Boom, and that was. But the thing of it is Owen continued to do the move afterwards.
Now, did anybody else get fucked up because of it?
Not that I've ever
Not
heard
that
of.
I've heard.
But it's just like, I mean, maybe
But
because
like,
Owen was pretty much known as a really safe worker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to put any shadow on Owen
safest.
Hart. Yeah. It's it could happen to anybody. A freak accident, boom. Look at Draws, with D'Lo Brown. D'Lo was doing his running power bomb and Draws is paralyzed for the rest of his life.
or the whole like Rey Mysterio when he accidentally killed a dude by doing what he drop kicked him and then he did a
Oh,
620, yeah. I can't remember the guy's name or whatever, but
I
yeah.
just heard about that. I did
Yeah,
not
that's
know
crazy.
about that.
Like when I was researching, I found out, I was like, oh my god. And the match kept going for a little bit, like before they even realized it. Like it went on for a few more minutes
Yeah.
before anybody realized he was dead.
It's crazy. But I'm trying to think of other rivals that really bled over and everything. I mean, of course, I would have to say probably top 3 greatest rival of all time in wrestling that bled over into real life was WCW versus WWF, the Monday Night Wars.
True.
I mean,
Probably.
that was
Because
the high point of wrestling.
Yeah.
What about the Rock versus Cena? Because that kind of went personal, because Cena was throwing shots because he was like, oh, The Rock only comes back every once in a while, not realizing it until he started doing movies that, like, when you're
He's
the
gonna do
face
the
of a
same thing.
movie, you have to, you can only do so much because if you get hurt, then you start production for, a couple months. That sets back people. You got all these people waiting on you. There's a lot of money involved.
Studios, they give
And, like,
up on
he
a movie.
Yeah, and so he didn't realize that until he started doing movies. And before that, he was talking a lot of shit about The Rock.
He did.
So, I mean, that's kind of a
And now
famous one,
he's
too, because
Hollywood
they're
man.
like the two biggest, probably one, I'd say a couple of the most famous wrestlers out there and shit.
I just, yeah, the
There was one I had heard about that it really kind of shocked me that he was even in an altercation with anybody. Santino Marella and Jim Cornette.
Really?
Really? Do you have any details? I've never
I have
heard
a
about
little
this.
bit. I don't completely quote me on all of this. This is just. I've also seen a video too at the end of it, but
Oh,
like,
I don't want to interrupt yours because I really want to hear yours. But you were talking about Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
Another rival with Jim Cornette that's bled over into real life is Jim Cornette versus the entire AEW
Yes.
and Tony
Yes.
Khan.
Jim
Really?
Cornette,
He
yes.
hates AEW.
He hates him. Oh, he wants
Kenny
to
Omega.
pee on his
He
grave.
can't stand. Oh, Vince Russo. Yes.
Yes.
He said he wants to live long enough to go to Vince Russo's grave and piss on it.
His wife even has directions to do.
I
the
heard
same
that.
if she
Yeah, I'm
dies,
pretty sure
or
I
if he
shared
dies
that one,
first.
too.
What?
Yep. But the Santino Marella between
It's
Jim
great.
Cornette was really shocking to me because Santino Marella, I've always had good things about
Yeah,
him.
me too. That's what I was kind of...
So that was the one that shocked me the most. Back when Santino Marella was really young and starting out, he was working for OVW and working with Jim Cornette and stuff when he worked there.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, I think they said his name was Boogeyman, but that also doesn't seem right. But there was a guy that was supposed to be scary and whatever, and
I remember him.
Santino Marella was supposed to be out in the audience, and there's clear video and pictures of him laughing at the dude instead of just being scared like everybody else was supposed to. And that was his job, was to act like he was scared. Jim Cornette was pissed off to the point where he either hit him or pushed him. And he was young to the point where the higher-ups did not like this and fired Jim Cornette over this. Santino Marella goes on to wrestle for WWE, have, success and this, that, and the other. Later on in life, they don't speak up until this point, and later on in life they meet at, I assume, a Comic-Con or something like that. And they meet backstage, and there's video of them, and Santino is coming up to him, and this is what shocked me, is Santino's coming up to him, and Jim is literally asking him, like, dude, just leave me alone, I'm trying to walk away, I don't want to talk about this, let's go on, whatever. I mean, it's been years.
I think I remember that video.
And Santino is still, like, trying to get him to say something or do something, and I'm just like, dude, leave the old man alone.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Cornette's a character in itself, but it was just shocking to see Santino Marella in that kind of view, because I've never heard of him having a beef with anybody.
That's crazy. I never knew.
Yeah,
about
it was
that.
really
I heard
crazy to
that,
me.
but
I had never heard of him, Jim Cornette, even being fired from
remember
OVW in the first place.
I remember that video, but I didn't
Yeah.
know what it was about. I couldn't really
That's
find
what it was about. It
anything.
was from way back whenever he was a younger kid, like, early 20s or 19s and 20s, I assume.
How can anybody be mad at Santino Marella?
I don't know.
I mean, come on. My name is Baptista. I shoot at the lasers.
Baptista
Pew, pew,
is
pew,
my
pew, pew.
favorite. John Cena.
Let me tell you something, John Cena.
But yeah, that was the one that really shocked me out of like all the ones that I was looking at.
What was it? KYJ is what he called him. KYJ. Let me tell you something, KYJ.
I love
I
Santino.
love
I
Santino
know,
Marella,
he
man.
cracks
He
me
was
up.
Love him.
great. And then, like, whenever when he got Cold Stone.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you something, Cold Stone. He was great. I love Santino Marella.
But yeah, those are the only ones I can think of.
So, like, what about the women? Like, we haven't really touched on any rivalries with the women.
Has there been any, like, women that have...
I've heard a few. Like I said, I got
There's a
Sasha
few.
Banks and Alexis Bliss had some
Yeah.
issues and shit.
I never knew about this.
Remember, not too long ago, was it Charlotte Flair and what's her name got personal in the ring? Lisa
Tiffany
Chip-
Stratton.
Yeah.
They've really.
Yeah.
Oh, she brought the divorces.
Oh,
up.
yeah.
yeah.
with
See,
the-
now that bled, and that was real recently and shit.
Yep.
She wasn't even supposed to say that, y'all, and
Right.
that was just. Ooh, that was.
I wonder if they've squashed
Beautiful.
that or if
They did.
they
They
did.
did like 2 days after the fact.
See, I hate that, man, because that's not, I'm
wanted
glad they
something
squashed
juicy.
it, but I'm glad that they've got something to build off of.
I wish they could have.
That's where the real life. Here's my thing: if your real life stuff bleeds over,
You have to be able to take it.
squash it. Sit down as as Vince McMahon, as Tony Khan, as I can't remember the name of the owner of TNA or whatever. If something like that pops up in your company, it is your job as the owner to sit down and squash that.
True.
But that doesn't mean that you can't look at them both and say, okay, now that you're walking out of this office in agreement that, this is squashed, it was dumb, there was no reason, we're good, I'm saying y'all work good
Let's
together.
build off this.
What people have seen this out in the public now. What can we use from this to build your all's rivalry now?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Your in-ring rivalry to where you all could squash this. Now go make some money together.
And I'm pretty sure they've probably done that before now. I don't think that happens all the time and shit.
Right.
Because of egos.
Yeah, well,
Right.
of course, egos get
And
in the
it's
way.
stupid, man, because there's your money. You look for your... I don't care what you say. Every wrestler, athlete, whatever... And honestly and truthfully, I think that's, and not getting over into something else, but I think that's something that hurt Michael Jordan, is he never had a rival that really stood up to him. But I think in all athletics, that there's always that one person that you compare yourself to.
Well, yeah.
You know,
so
Hogan's was
stupid to me.
Flair's. You know what I'm saying? Shawn and Brett. You know what I'm saying? Billy Graham and Bob Backlund, I guess. You know, it's a little
Rock
bit
and
before
Stone
my
Cold.
Rock and Stone Cold. You know what I'm saying? There's so many
I hate that too.
tag teams. You know,
Which one is better than the other person in the tag team?
Steiners, and you know, just all this other stuff. You look for you look for that rival to be able to. And if you notice, most of those names had real life beef. So it's sad that they couldn't squash it and push and say, man, look, we could, you know, look what could have, like I said earlier, look what could have been done off the Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. You know, we could have got the Iron Man 2. We could have got all kinds of stuff. You know, it's just sad that it doesn't. That the egos, they talk about making money, and I'm just talking as a fan. You know what I'm saying? I don't know nothing about going out there and taking bumps and making the money and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, if you're talking about making money, then even if you can't squash it for real, squash it for
Business purposes. Yeah.
Well, like some people do, because I doing the research when I was doing it, I mean, there's some people that they didn't like each other, but they would go out and they would work their matches well together.
Well,
they
Shawn
just
and Brett.
Yeah. They just wasn't cool with each other and shit. And now I saw Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair had issues.
Yeah,
and
they
shit.
do. They started out as best friends.
Yeah, on like NXT, and then I think once they started moving to the main rosters and shit, I think egos kind of got in the way a little bit and shit, and that kind of.
Well, yeah, because Becky got the push and Charlotte
Yeah.
didn't get it, and Charlotte thought that she was nepo baby. I've got a.
Yeah.
I automatically
I got
get
the legacy,
seniority.
I'm a Flair, I deserve
Right.
this and that.
And it
Well, I
doesn't
mean,
work
she's
that way.
already got 15 world championships.
Well, that's when they were
14.
first starting, yeah.
14. Okay, so see, and that's why I don't think they were worried about, and that's why I don't think Flair cared about John Cena breaking Flair's record.
I don't believe that because
No.
I seen a thing with Ric Flair showing up at a basketball game where he was quoted the 21-time champion after John was saying that he was the highest
Because
champion.
he is a 21-time world champion. Did you
I'm
know?
not saying that
Right,
he's
right,
not,
right.
but like before,
Right.
before that, you were saying that you were like what 15.
I think what it
I don't know.
is I think the reason Flair's kind of hushed up about it, though, one, I think Flair's, I love you, Rick, but I think he's,
Retire.
yeah, he needs to just quit. Go home, relax, enjoy what's left of life, and just live the good life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got
He's earned it, yeah.
You got
Yeah.
a successful marijuana company. You've got, do you a few Comic-Cons here and there with your old Four Horsemen buddies, kind of fix those relationships, because I didn't know him and Arn Anderson don't speak anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that either. That's
Yeah,
kinda
like
messed up.
something happened. I don't really know any details, but, I mean, they may have fixed it by now. I don't know. But, I think the reason he's not worried about with Cena is because, and again, with just rivals, sorry getting off here, but I think it's because they're eventually going to have Charlotte break it all.
That's interesting.
Let
Probably.
her,
I thought that too at
let
one
a
point, but
woman
I'm not
be
sure.
the all-time leader in world championships, but it's still a Flair.
I thought
And
that.
how can Flair begrudge his daughter for being the greatest of all time? 2 Flairs in the top 3.
I could see it happening, but probably not for long and shit. Like, I could see her breaking the record,
It won't be like in the next
and
year.
then, somebody else come along and break it, of course.
I don't know.
Um,
I mean, I think they'll let her keep it for a while. Because, I mean, if you look at it, Flair has only been
She
the
would've-
all-time champion for about 20 years.
only 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
it hasn't been that long.
Only 20 years?
that's not that long.
20 years in
And with-
wrestling? Like, some people don't even get a 5-year, like, couple-year run. This man's been on top for 20 years?
No. I'm saying, like, since he won that record-breaking
Oh,
championship,
okay.
it was only a 20-year
Oh, since
gap.
then.
That, I mean, it roughly. because it was around 2000s, late WCW, because he got a couple
Yeah.
of little silly runs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, that put him over the top there and everything, but it really wasn't that long that he got to walk around and say he was the all-time champ. And I mean, like she said, he's like 21.
Yeah.
Real life.
Yeah, real talk. I think that like everybody still considers him over John Cena as far as having more titles and shit.
I don't even know. To me, it's not the fact that John's got more. I just feel like Rick's, and it's no slight to John, I just feel like Rick's are more significant. When you're wrestling 5 nights a week, an hour every night, you know what I'm saying? And, doing it with the greatest, not in the company, but the greatest around the world all the time. Japan, Puerto Rico, Mexico. You know what I'm saying?
I
I see
agree
what you
with
mean,
you
man.
and stuff, but I think more that it's just more subjective. I think everybody's going to have their own opinion or choices, when it comes to that. Because I know other people build cases, but I agree with you when it comes to the whole, as far as Ric Flair.
And to give something to John Cena. John Cena's title reigns and his, breaking the record and everything was awesome for carrying the WWE. But his title reigns were just WWE title reigns. And granted, that's the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the one that everybody shoots to get. But at the end of the day, I think the substance, because it was worldwide, it was...
That it carries more.
It was, well, the NWA title was recognized by more territories. You know what I'm saying? They weren't secluded to, this is the only world title
Yeah.
there is, even though it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was like, even whenever Flair was wrestling another world champion in like Japan or something, and it was, there was no titles on the line, he was still wrestling the best and beating the best for an hour every night.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
see what you mean.
But I also think that times had changed by then and stuff.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of things were still kind of the same, but slowly over time, things have kind of softened up as far as, the wrestling life or whatever.
You didn't have to travel as much to make as much money. You
think-
could stay in the WWE and make $5-10 million by the time you left.
Well, yeah, and plus now there's, guaranteed contracts. I'm pretty sure the medical's a little bit better. I mean, I'm pretty sure you get a bigger cut of T-shirt sales, because back then I don't think, T-shirts and merchandise was as big as it was, back when Ric Flair was, doing shit in the NWA as it is in the WWE now, because that's a big chunk of money now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you get a cut of the merchandise and shit. That's a lot of money.
It is. And a lot of them actually deal with their own merchandise, so.
Okay. But since you wanted to bring up, earlier legend about, the whole Brett and Shawn and people not wanting to drop titles. Well, what about your boy Shawn not wanting to drop the title to Stone Cold, and the Undertaker standing by the gorilla position, making sure he was going to drop it, or
Well,
else he was going to take that ass whooping.
It's not that he wasn't going to.
He didn't want
it
to.
It was that people knew he was doped out of his head at the time, and they didn't know if he was going to.
If he remembered to.
Right, basically.
If he remembered
I mean,
to.
honestly, yeah. But you got to stop and think. Think about it, man. He was literally wrestling for like 4 months with a broken back.
And I understand all that shit, but at the same time,
He was taking like 13 pain. I think he said he took like 13 painkillers just to go out there and do that match with Stone Cold.
How did he function? Like, I'm a recovering pain pill addict, so I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how did he function?
It was just normal to. I mean, that's like.
I guess after a while it would become normal.
That's like Kurt Angle, was talking about his addiction. When
Yeah.
he was all fucked up, like he would take ton of pills in the morning. He would never wrestle fucked up, but as soon as he was done with his match, he'd pop a ton more
Yeah.
pills just to make it through the day and shit. And then finally he had to tell Vince, I'm done. You know, like, I got to take, I mean, you got to cut me loose. Like, I got to get sober and shit. So, I mean, but, you know, the almost the same thing as the Montreal screw job, except for, you know, they learned from past mistakes, and
Yeah.
Undertaker was standing by the gorilla position like, hey, Sean, you know you better do what you better do and shit. But and of course he did what he was supposed to do at the end and shit. But you know, that's just, you know, that was kind of fair play, and that was a rivalry between him and Stone Cold, because
Yeah,
he did not
that's
want to
true.
drop that to let him get over. But eventually, you know, he did the right thing and he let him get over and shit. And I think also being fucked up physically and mentally, I mean, not mentally, but, you know, being on drugs had a lot to do with it also.
Go back and watch that WrestleMania on Peacock.
Which one is it?
What is it? I want to say it's 12 or 13. I want to
Okay.
say it's 13. But you ain't got to watch the whole thing, but
Yeah.
just watch that.
That particular part.
Well, just before Sean comes out,
Okay.
they've got, like, they're behind in almost a gorilla position, and he walks up to the camera, and, like, he gets real close to the camera. You can look at his eyes and tell how doped out of his mind he was. Like, his
Yeah.
eyes were so red. I mean, he was talking coherently and everything, you know, staying in
Yeah.
character. But it's just like, you know, to think what they put their bodies through, especially back then when there wasn't the option to take time off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
true.
saying? My
Yeah.
toes broke. I got to just wrestle.
And you can't be off TV because then you'll be forgotten about.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker had a rivalry and shit, because he comes to blames The Undertaker for getting injured when he threw him off it was that casket match, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Because
Mm-hmm.
he hit
fucked
the...
up. Yeah, he hit his back and shit, and they had a little beef too. Now
Yeah.
I know he wasn't gonna talk too much shit to the Taker, but they didn't like each other for a while also. So your boy Sean, you know, a little dirty.
Hey, I love Sean, but that don't
Everybody
mean,
has their faults.
you know, and one of his greatest rivalries too was like the 12 Marines that beat him up in real life because he was running his mouth at that bar.
I
So
forgot.
I'm not surprised on you know, like, any of that shit. But like I said, it kind of seems like I'm not saying everybody, but there seems to be a couple people that are kind of consistently have issues. You know, like
Yeah.
Hogan, Sean, Brent, Vince for
Yeah.
sure.
CM Punk.
CM Punk and shit, like
Flair,
oh yeah,
with
Flair.
Bischoff
Flair.
and Jim Herd.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of like WCW type man. And what about all the stars with that one UWF, that Herb Abrams guy? Have you ever heard about that?
Uh-uh.
Oh man, we need to do a deep dive into the old UWF and Herb Abrams. Yeah, it was a rival promotion. It was trying to come up in the late '80s, early '90s. It's some crazy stuff, man.
But I know Jericho also has some issues with some people too and shit, especially him and Ryback. Like, he hated Ryback and shit.
Ryback actually had a lot of arguments with a lot of people. He
Yeah.
also had one with CM Punk too.
I don't
that
think he was
found out
that
about.
safe. I don't think he was
He
a good
wasn't.
worker or whatever.
Who, CM Punk?
No, Ryback.
Ryback.
That's been one of his.
And I didn't realize how dangerous he was because he was so explosive.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
mean,
realize
I
how
never
dangerous
really
it was.
watched much of Ryback because that was like
I
in that
loved
time
him.
when that gap was going on where I
I
didn't
did a
watch.
little bit and shit. Like, I thought he was all right.
Yeah, that's all I know
more.
is the feed me,
Feed
and
me
Yeah.
more.
I've seen highlights, but I've never really seen a full match or anything.
He was
Because he
really
came
good.
from
I liked him.
he came from Nexus, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, because that was like
That's when
Nexus
that
was
first
kind
time
of
I
the
seen
start of NXT, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
But then they shit on Nexus and let John Cena win and shit. It kinda
of course,
pissed me off.
because we got.
And then that just killed all the momentum for fucking Nexus, and they all just kind
Yeah,
of
because I do remember watching a little bit of the Nexus stuff because it got me interested. And
Wade
when
Barrett.
Wade
yeah,
Barrett,
Wade Barrett, yeah,
he was
that's
the
what-
leader of it.
Leader
Yep,
of
yep.
it.
I thought he was cool. I thought Wade Barrett should have. Look, we're getting way off topic because we're getting ready to wrap this up. But I thought Wade Barrett should have been a good leader for like a group like we were talking about with Drew McIntyre
Yeah,
and
like
William Regal and like a foreign
Worldly type.
world
Yeah.
group and everything to come together. I thought that would have been pretty cool
Mm-hmm.
and everything. But yeah, guys, I think that's it. I don't have any other rivalries that I can think of. Like I said, it's just sad that some of this stuff bleeds over into it, but it's also the stuff that bleeds over that, makes it a little bit more interesting every now and then.
Sometimes makes the best stories.
It
A little
does.
touch
It
of
does.
reality.
Yep.
It's sad that it does, but it does. And it does what it does, and it do what it do. Y'all got anything else?
No.
Nope, tapped out over here.
Same here.
Guys, I guess the referee's getting ready to hit that 3 count, so you know what that means. Let's ring the damn bell.
Then we're afterwards. We got to work on that one. Got to work on.